The following is a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network.
What's going on, sports fans out there? It's time for Huddle Up. Huddle Up, baby. I'm Scoreboard Guy, Guy Newcomb. Coach Arbitr's up there in the left-hand corner, and our guest host, Eric DeRossett, D-Row, up in the right-hand corner. Gentlemen, how are we tonight?
Doing well. Had a good week of a break as far as basketball is concerned, and dead week is this week, so finally able to get back and get on the show.
Yeah, the dead week, and I think, Eric, you're going through that too, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a good week. It's kind of a bittersweet week. You know, you enjoy it while it's there, but you're also sort of anticipating, next week. So it's kind of a weird place, but it's good to have some designated time off for sure.
Then it's the fall. I mean, you look outside here in Southwest Missouri, it don't feel like fall. I was sitting on my porch thinking I was needing an ice bag. It got up to 80 degrees today here in late October, but the winter season's right around the corner, but we've got a lot of stuff to take care of, and we'll talk about that with whether. And I kind of put a bow on the fall season as the playoffs in the high schools have started. We're seven weeks into the NFL season. The Chiefs have made big moves. And you could go back to that week one, and they lose by a point to Detroit at home, and the sky was falling. And then, that was a Thursday night game, but you look at what happened on Sunday with Cincinnati getting beat and Buffalo getting beat. Everything that, kind of fell right for the Chiefs, and they haven't lost since. And Darren, it's especially this last week, Patrick Mahomes just does what Patrick Mahomes does that nobody else can do.
Well, that's why he's the best playing right now. He's probably done more for the NFL than, since Tom Brady and being on the run that he has or that he did. And they're an awfully fun team to watch. Defensively, they have really stepped up this year. That defense has allowed the offense to have some good opportunities. And the Chiefs also picked up Mecole Hardman, which I think was a great pickup. Hey, he wanted to be in Kansas City. Why not get another receiver in that wants to be there, that knows the system, so to speak? And things are clicking right now. You talked about the AFC teams that got beat. You also take a look at the NFC. San Francisco took one on the chin. Philadelphia took one on the chin. So a lot of people are coming back to earth a little bit at this point in time in the season. And I like where the Chiefs are sitting right now.
Well, yeah. You look at just the injury. They're too deep on the defensive side of the football. I mean, too deep, and you lose Nick Bolton. He's going to be out 6 weeks with his wrist surgery, but they got guys to fill in for him. And Eric, what are your thoughts on what you've seen so far this year?
So I think two things kind of come to mind. There's been a little scuttlebutt about the Chiefs' offense. I mean, there's been some people kind of concerned about that. I think, I don't think any of us question their ability to score points. And I think what they do better than anybody else is they score them when they need to. So I think that's a crucial piece. The other piece is what Coach Archer mentioned. It seems to be a lot of parity right now in the NFL. And so the Chiefs, I think, have clearly distanced themselves from all those other teams, even the Eagles, perhaps. 49ers don't seem to be sharp. So I think the Chiefs have sort of separated themselves from the pack, and there's some parity in that next group, I think.
Well, and you pick up Mecole Hardman, you get it for $1.4 million. That's a cup of coffee. I mean, that has no influence on on their cap. It's not a cap hit for them. So they still have the ability to go out and get another wide receiver, and it's going to be, can Travis Kelce stay healthy? And that's maybe the biggest thing right now, other than obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, but can he stay healthy, and can Taylor Swift keep showing up at games?
I think that's more important than him staying healthy, in my opinion. You were talking about a stat. I'll let you mention the stat that you were talking about off air.
Yeah, he's in games that she's attending, he's had 100 yards receiving. In games that she's not attending, 46 yards receiving. So, Andy Reid said in his press conference, "Hey, Taylor Swift's welcome to every one of our games." And that's
Can't blame him for that.
No, and that catching Taylor Swift may be the best catch he's had all year.
Sure.
But I'm looking forward to this. Coming in, they got Denver coming up. They go to Miami, or they don't go to Miami. They play Miami, but it's in Germany, and that might be a test for him. But Etienne, the Miami running back, that's just had put up ridiculous numbers. He's out for that game. So, and they're playing well. And I am so sick and tired of the media going after. Justin Herbert, he's his the best quarterback in that division. That every year you get that. He's 27-28. That's a losing record overall. He's 1-5 against Mahomes, and 2-5 against the Chiefs. But that game was the game that Chad Henne played, and it was at the end of the year where they didn't need to win. So he's 1-5 against Mahomes, and it's all about that LA narrative. And I'm sick of it because it's a big market. They're going to be good. The Raiders are going to be good. I don't know. Bring the Rams back to St. Louis and forget about the LA market. It's all about it's all about Lakers, Dodgers. But anyway, he didn't have a good game, but Patrick Mahomes sure did. So what? As we look forward now, they are the 1 seed right now at 6-1. They got a 3.5 game lead in the division. They're not even halfway through the season yet. So you got to feel good about the Chiefs. And then, at the World Series is coming up. Starts on Friday, the 27th. You've got 2 unlikely teams there. I had a conversation earlier today about, that Arizona, they were 6 games over 500 at 84. And at 84 and 78 on the season. As you look at this new playoffs and things like that, Manfred's got to be probably the least popular, president of baseball operations or whatever his title is in the history of baseball. But what are your thoughts, Eric, just on like the playoffs and how we got to Arizona and Texas in the World Series?
Yeah. So, from a fan standpoint, we all sort of like that, the surprise team narrative. We all enjoy that a little bit and latch onto that. I think the country as a whole probably sort of doesn't migrate to that. But if you're a baseball purist or a baseball fan, like, this is a great series, right? And this is going to get personal here, but I'm a Reds fan. You're a Cardinals fan. Darren's a Cubs fan. Like, it was a struggle for us, all 3 of us this year. But when you see teams like Arizona and Texas, then you sort of go into the next year thinking, hey, if they can do it, then so can my team. And I think fan bases for what I would call maybe small market teams or something like that, like, this system gives them hope every year. And I think Arizona and Texas mirror that completely this year.
D8?
I think there's a double-edged sword to the newly formed wildcard games, the added games. People like Texas, Arizona, they're feeling awfully good about it right now. People like Atlanta et al. Are probably not too happy about it with the number of days that they have to sit and not play. That's tough when you've been playing for a full season and all of a sudden you have to take 4 or 5 days off. It's tough to simulate games and staying in that mindset and staying in that groove, so to speak. I think it reared its ugly head for the quote unquote better teams from throughout this season. So, there's pros and cons to it. I like the fact that it gets more fan bases involved with the postseason. I think from a monetary standpoint, it's great. It's got to be great for MLB, which bottom line, that's what they're worried about. But it's going to be an interesting World Series. Arizona is a team that lost over 100 games just 2 years ago, and all of a sudden, they're back in it. They're back in the big series, and Texas did a great job the last couple of years of collecting talent and trading for talent, and it should be a good series. I've got a feeling that Texas bullpen could get them in the long run. I think if there's a glaring weakness for both teams, it kind of leans towards Texas's bullpen. That's the big concern I have for Texas going in to the game. And a lot of those kids from Arizona, they're young enough, and also a lot of cast-offs. We were talking about this off air. A lot of cast-offs on that Arizona team that feel like they have something to prove. If they continue to play like they don't know any better, I like Arizona's chances.
Well, I'll leave you with this, kind of the stat of the day here. But you can be 6 games over 500, make the playoffs. All you've got to do to get to the World Series is win 9 of 16 games to get to the World Series. How many teams you think this year in MLB had a stretch where they won 9 of 16 games? Every freaking team, even the Royals, even the A's,
Really?
every team in MLB won 9 out of 16 games. And I'm a purist.
Sure.
I like when they went to the East and West divisions, back in '79 or whenever that was, and then they had the 3 out of 5 and then 4 out of 7. That was okay, but now they got 12 teams in now, and it's kind of watered it down a little bit. The owners love it because it's generating money. It's putting money in their pocket. So we'll see what happens, but just overall, not a fan. Any thoughts before we take a quick timeout?
No, I do think Darren said it best. There's two sides to that story, and it is fun. No matter where you stand on it, it is fun to see these two teams face off. And Darren kind of said it. They don't even know what they don't know, especially Arizona. I mean, this is all new to them, and you can just tell how much fun they're having. And as a baseball purist, like you said, like baseball, the way I remember it, the way I grew up with it, it was just fun, and it had energy and passion. And I'm kind of with Darren. Those Diamondbacks, they're a lot of fun right now, and in my mind, they could win this whole thing.
Very good. Well, hey, you're watching Huddle Up and listening to Huddle Up here on the Missouri Sports Network, coming live from the Bambino's Cafe. Bambino's Cafe, Italian Cafe, where we host the quarterback club, tip-off club, and the leadoff clubs every Monday during their seasons. Join us at noon at Bambino's Italian Cafe, and we'll be back after these messages on Huddle Up.
The Walnut Street Inn is located in the heart of Springfield on historic Walnut Street, just blocks away from the Missouri State Campus, Hammons Field, Great Southern Arena, and downtown Springfield. The Walnut Street Inn features newly remodeled rooms, breakfast served daily, and a friendly, accommodating staff. The Walnut Street Inn is also a great venue for private events. Book your stay or get more information at walnutstreetinn.com or call 417-864-6346.
Hey, welcome back to Huddle Up here on the Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Certainly glad you tuned in. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Once again, I'm Guy Newcomb, the Scoreboard Guy, along with Coach Archer and guest host Eric DeRossett here on Huddle Up. And gentlemen, it's college football season kind of wrapping up. We got the BCS, college football poll, CFP poll comes out on Tuesday. Halloween. We've got a few undefeated teams and some teams that may move around, but that's going to be huge going into the remainder of the season, because those top 4 finishers or did we go to 6 this year? I'm a little confused. I think it's still the top 4 that go to the college football playoff, but What are your thoughts there, Eric, as you look at that? We talked a little bit about the undefeated teams. Do you think it stays pat with where teams are right now as far as the coaches poll in the top four?
Yeah, it's interesting. The grouping that's there in those undefeateds, the fact that Florida State and Washington is in that group of undefeateds, that's a little different look than what it has been in the past. And Alabama is not in that top six. Now they're right there in the shadows for sure. They never go away. But I think the Florida State and Washington piece, really interesting. Sort of got that TCU feel from last year. How do they fit into that mix? And there's always controversy about how that's decided and those kinds of things. But I would keep your eye on to the Florida State, Washington scenarios.
Yeah, you look at that, coming out of conferences that you figure Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia are locks if they win out. Now Georgia's got to beat Mizzou, this weekend. I'm not sure who Ohio State has left, but I think if Oklahoma runs the table, there's a possibility there where they're going to leap, Washington and Florida State get into that top four if they're able to run the table. Darren?
Yeah, I agree. There's going to be a lot of jockeying between now and when the bowls are announced. We're going to talk about Mizzou here in just a little bit, but hey, they can play spoiler for Georgia, and they have played them very well and very close the last 2 years. Last year should have won it. For all intents and purposes, won that game, but it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. I can tell you this, in my opinion, the Pac-12 may be the best from top to bottom as far as conferences are concerned. And what's crazy is next year it will be no more, or if it is anymore, it'll have two teams to start from scratch. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. I don't think that Georgia is the Georgia of old, but until somebody beats them, they're going to have to be on top. Eventually, Michigan State and Ohio State are on a crash course for the very last game of the season to see who moves on to the Big 12, the Big 10 championship game. And it will be interesting to see how those dynamics work throughout as well. So a lot of football to be played. It's going to be fun to watch how things shake out toward the end of the season as we're getting closer, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, you talk about the Pac-12 there, and Caleb Williams taking himself out of the Heisman. You got to look at that, and does he just shut it down? He's already making $1 million in NIL money. Does he shut it down and say, "Hey, I'm not going to get hurt. The national championship's gone. The chance of winning the Heisman's gone. I'm shutting it down." And is that an opportunity? Do you think that's something that might happen, where he just says, "I'm done"?
It's a whole new era with those sorts of questions now with the NIL money. If he's just talking in terms of his own career and his own self-preservation, I think he's certainly got to give strong consideration to that. The three of us sitting around, that's not what we're used to. We want to see the best players playing every game from an entertainment sort of perspective. So it's new territory. And I think sort of the decisions that he may make might set a precedence going forward.
Well, and here's what's crazy is he's already pretty much made his demands known that whoever drafts him, he wants partial ownership in the team as part of his compensation. Now, I'm sure there are no numbers out on him what he's making right now, but I would bet it's an awful lot and probably pretty close to what the league maximum is for rookie contracts heading into the NFL. So, hey, he's looking for that payday, and he's going to get it, whether he stays in college or whether he declares for the NFL draft.
Yeah, but can you imagine the I guess arrogance to tell a team, "Hey, you're going to draft me number one. I want to own your team. I want that in my contract." That's like Patrick Mahomes didn't do that. And he hasn't proven anything. And I can't imagine, during these draft meetings, sitting down with a young man and I said, "Okay, I want to be part ownership, of your team. If you're going to draft me." I don't know. And he may not be the number one overall pick now. I mean, you got to look at, I mean, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan is putting up huge numbers. And if he gets a win there over Ohio State, he's probably your favorite. He may be your favorite now. And if he beats Ohio State, I think he wins it. But we've got Mizzou's got Georgia coming up, and they get a win this past weekend over South Carolina. Brady Cook had a pretty decent game. He went 14, I think, of 27. Had I'm looking at it right here. 217 yards, but he did not throw an interception. And I think that's the one thing. If Mizzou can avoid the turnovers here late, they're already bowl eligible. They're ranked 13th in the country. If they can avoid the turnovers with Georgia, I think they can get a win.
Yeah, I think that game, and Darren already mentioned it, but I don't feel like Georgia is as good as they have been maybe in the past. I think there's a few chinks in their armor, perhaps. Obviously, Missouri's better and playing with a ton of confidence. So I think when those two things collide on Saturday, that it can make for an interesting game. Most football games come down to this, but this is true for that game. Special teams and turnovers, I mean, those two things will probably go a long ways in that game. And they do in most, but I truly feel that specifically to this game, if there's a big special teams play or a pick six or something along those lines, that team stands a chance to win that game.
Yeah, you got to think that, Darren, don't you?
Yes, and from the game last year, Georgia's offense is not near what it was last year. Their offense has been kind of their Achilles heel, and at the same time, Mizzou's defense has improved dramatically over last year. And I still think that Mizzou has that X factor in Luther Burden, who is a threat at any point in time with punt returns, receiving, what have you. He's kind of the X factor. And if he draws double coverage, the rest of the receiving crew is quite capable of putting some hurt on the defensive backs of Georgia, without a doubt.
Well, and he's leading the nation in receiving yards. I mean, it's been a long time. You got to go back to maybe Jeremy Macklin, at Mizzou, that was even in that top 10 there in receiving yards. But he's number one, or he was going into this game. I haven't looked at his stats lately, but other teams, Missouri State gets a win over a Murray State team that they were picked to win. I think they were a 20-point plus favorite in that contest, and they get a 4-point win, and they were lucky to get that. They get the ball back with 1 minute and 57 left on an interception. They can't run out the clock. So it was a little bit stressful there, but the defense holds, and Ryan Beard gets his third win of the year. But they're going to struggle, I think, the rest of the year. I don't think they'll be favored in any of the games that they play coming up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely tough sledding for them. Obviously, we all hope for success there, and maybe they can steal a game or two that will build some confidence. Going back to Mizzou, I mean, we have to think that Luther's in the same conversation with Marvin Harrison. I mean, don't you think? I mean, he's in that conversation. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the thing that Harrison Jr. has going for him is his name, and Daddy.
Sure.
But Luther has proven that he's one of the top receivers in the nation, and he'll be high on a lot of draft boards, no doubt.
For sure.
And going back, finishing up here with Missouri State, they go. They're at Youngstown State this Saturday. They finish up with Illinois and Northern Iowa at home. And then our Illinois State, Northern Iowa at home, and then at South Dakota State, which you can almost pencil that one in as a loss. That's maybe the best team in the country in FCS football. SBU kind of struggling a little bit. They fall to Missouri S&T, but Evangel is on a roll. They're 8-0 right now. They get a 22-11 win over the Friends University, who was nationally ranked. They are not now. Evangel moves up to number 13, but they've got a head-on collision with Southwestern, in the KCAC here in a couple of weeks, who's ranked number 9 in the country. And, But Coach Heppola, and he's been a part of the quarterback club all year long. He's a tremendous guy. He's very loyal to the quarterback club, but I always enjoy hearing him talk about his players. But kind of a historic year if they can run the table in the first year of being in the KCAC.
Yeah, I think it's exciting for Evangel. I mean, it's good for them, and they do a great job of recruiting locally. And you're right. I mean, the program, they do it the right way. You're right. That game with Southwestern in a couple weeks, that's sort of a benchmark game. So I'm interested to see how they do there.
Yeah, just a little known fact from that game, as Dylan Hester becomes the all-time career leader in receptions, as he tied Brandon Schmidley last week. Brandon Schmidley, a Mount Vernon guy, who is now a professor, a doctor there at Evangel, and then he passed his brother Dallas Hester over the weekend here with his first reception, becoming the all-time leading receiver. And Tim got to visit with Tim Hester a little bit. Their father is the head coach, football coach at Stratford, and that's got to be exciting for him and exciting for Evangel to have record setters, at this point of the year. Anyway, we will take a break here. We'll come back. We'll talk a little high school football, maybe some conference realignment that still is not done. Had some kind of confusing things happen just in the last 24 hours on the alignment. Talk a little bit about that. We've got state softball tournament is coming up this weekend at Killian. So the Final Fours have been set there, and we'll talk a little bit about those as well. You're watching Huddle Up on the Missouri Sports Network. Back after these messages.
Imagine a bank that goes where you go, creating seamless solutions for every step in your financial journey, allowing you to manage your money the way you want to, with a banking relationship that makes every day extraordinary. Imagine a world full of possibilities, always within reach. Central Bank. We do banking better.
Hey, back here for our final segment on Huddle Up. For those of you be curious, where is Johnny Mack? Well, Johnny Mack, he had a parent-teacher conference tonight, and that's super important to him and he and his family, and he wanted to make sure he was there for his daughter, and so that's why he's not here. He's okay. He's not. He no longer is hunting the Chiefs a holic guy. That's been caught. So he may went down to visit with him as well. But no.
Hey, guy, I'm calling his bluff. I haven't been on forever, and I'm finally able to get on. I think he thought Archer's coming on. I'm out.
Yeah.
I
That's
got
that
you,
whole
Johnny.
coach thing, man.
I got you, Johnny.
Well, we are wrapping up the fall seasons here as softball. Here, golf is already done. Softball is winding down here. We've got the Final Four. They've been decided in classes 1 through 5 here, and some local Southwest Missouri folks in attendance. In Class 1, Marion C. Early defeats St. Elizabeth in the quarterfinal 5-1, and they move on to play Jamestown, who defeated Salisbury 18-13. La Plata, they move on, and they're going to play Gallatin, who defeated Jefferson Conception. And in Class 2, and Darren, you mentioned this, all 4 games were decided by 1 run, and one of them went extra innings. But Chaffee 8-7 over Iberia, and they will play Lynn, who in 8 innings defeated Ellsbury 7-6. South Harrison over Bowling Green 4-3. Mid Buchanan defeats Carrollton. Carrollton defeats Mid Buchanan 6-5, and a Carrollton team who had to beat a very good Sherwood team with Kennedy Diggs on the mound, who is a KU commit, who we've had on the show earlier. And it's softball, but are they going to get them in with the weather that's coming in? It's going to be tough, ain't it, DA?
Yeah, the weather outlook does not look very promising. Going to be interesting to see how that pushes pushes things back, because once it gets set in, as far as Southwest Missouri goes, and obviously the state finals are in Springfield, the rain is supposed to set in sometime tomorrow and not let up until who knows when. Midweek next week, I think there's something pretty good chances of rain throughout every day, and the temperature's going down.
Yeah. And Eric, from an athletic director's position, and obviously Misha runs this tournament, this is kind of the worst nightmare when you're hosting a tournament, whether it be a softball that's outside with rain or even a basketball tournament. We got a lot of snow coming in. It's tough to make those decisions, especially when you've got people coming from several hundred miles in some cases.
Yeah, that's the big key is you've got to make decisions late enough to give yourself a chance, but you have to make them early enough so that people don't start making their way and make that drive and those accommodations and all that goes into it. I do not envy Misha with this. We all have a tendency to poke fun at Misha or take our shots at them from time to time, but I would not want to be them this weekend when it comes to making those decisions.
Yeah, and they've here recently they've been an awful big target. They've not went and hit anywhere for sure. But in Class 3, in the quarterfinals, you got St. Francis Borgia taking on Winfield, and Fatima will face Oak Grove. And in Class 4, you got Washington will come down, and they've had a tremendous season. They shut out Cape Notre Dame, 13-0. Parkway West gets a run rule over North Point, 11-1. And then Elias Catholic 4-3 over a very good Camdenton team. And Kearney defeats Nevada. So that is set up with Washington versus Parkway West. Elias Catholic takes on Kearney. And those two games are tomorrow. So they'll start tomorrow in some cases. But we shall see. In Class 5, you've got Francis Howell. They defeat Jackson 3-1. Troy Buchanan shuts out Francis Howell North. Well, that would have been interesting. Francis Howell and Francis Howell North playing in the semis. What are they, 2 blocks away? And then Blue Spring South, who's been dominant all year, and they defeat Willard 16-2. And Ray-Pec with a 1-0 win in 9 innings over Liberty. So the Final Fours are set there. And gentlemen, we're getting into the playoffs for high school football, and there's some intriguing matchups in week 1, but a lot of teams get buys. I mean, there's only 4 games in Class 1 with the changes that went on with now there's just the 4 districts in Class 1, which used to be just 4 in Class 6. Now they've moved to Class 1, and they put 36 teams in there. So every seed except the 8 and 9 seeds they all get buys this week. And you look at that district with Marionville's been number 1 in the state all year long. But number 2 in that district is Portageville, and they are loaded. Got a chance to visit with Ian Penrod, the coach down there at Portageville. But Eric, what are your thoughts here as you head in to the postseason now with football and softball?
Well, it's interesting. I think the weather could actually impact this week's football games. We were referencing in terms of softball, but cooler temperatures and a wet field, and all of a sudden it doesn't take as many points to win a game, and one big player here and there because of the weather. I think there could be some interesting games this week in terms of games being a lot closer than you would envision, or even a spotty upset somewhere along the way.
And DA, you got to figure in lightning. I mean, you could have games that don't get over till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, or maybe they've got to come back on a Sunday. And we've seen that rarely, but we have seen games that have gone on. I called a Kickapoo game against Lebanon one year that we didn't start the second quarter until 11:15, and it was a bunch of lightning delays.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities that could occur with the impending weather that's forecast throughout the state, obviously. But one thing I love about this time of year is you can throw records out the window. Everybody is 0-0 right now. A lot of the teams that have not had the season that they wanted or hoped for are playing with house money right now. They have absolutely nothing to lose, and you know how it is, or we all know how it is this time of year. If you're not bringing your A game, it could shorten your season, and this will be an interesting week to say the least. And one big matchup that I see up and down the line could be in Class 6 between Kirkwood and CBC. CBC's been state ranked throughout most of the year, and Kirkwood is 6-2. Played very good competition, so to me, that's going to be the game of the week, and going to be interested to see who comes out of that first round game.
Yeah, and you look at that Class 5 district that has Helias Catholic, and then Lebanon's at the bottom of that bracket. That would be an amazing matchup if they get there. But I tell you what, Republic, Coach Ryan Cornelson has got those guys playing so well, and they're able to run the ball but also pass pretty efficiently with Wyatt Woods at quarterback. But that's a game that that game could get over at 8:30 if they're both just keeping it on the ground, and then that sets up a matchup. And then you've got Webb City hanging on to that 1 seed in that District 5 because of the forfeit. And this is kind of a quirky thing with Misha. Carthage should have been the number 2 seed, which meant that they would have jumped them and they would have hosted throughout districts. However, when Grandview was forced to forfeit a few games, that gave a win to Raytown South. So Raytown South jumped into that 2 slot, and you can't jump 2 spots ahead. So Carthage now will have to go on the road if they're able to win and get to it. They'll have to go on the road to Raytown South and win, and then go back to Webb City and win. And that's a team that started 0-3 and 1-4, but now they've won 4 in a row. So they've that's something you want to keep a lookout there. And then Cardinal Ritter may be the class of Class 5. I don't think anybody beats Cardinal Ritter, and Brendan Spain has done a tremendous job there. And it's you've got a few teams, maybe Liberty North in Class 4. Maryville. Maryville beat Liberty North. And they're in Class 3. That's Maryville, Matt Webb, local, kind of not really a local guy, but married, girl that grew up in Bolivar. But Eric, as you look at going into this, and you talked a little bit about the rain, but what are some teams maybe that have stuck out in your mind, just throughout the year that maybe they're perennials, or maybe that's a surprise team?
Right. Obviously, I've seen Marionville at the Class 1. Hey, they're pretty good, and it's traditional Marionville. They're physical. They beat you up front. They wear you down. They're not flashy. They're not slinging it 40 yards down the field or whatever, but they are very efficient. And I do think that their style allows them to control teams that could possibly be better than them, talent for talent. And so specific to your question, I like Marionville in Class 1. Now they're going to have to play. Anybody you play this time of year, you're going to have to play, but I really like them.
Darren, what are some teams maybe that have stood out to you this year? Statewide, you mentioned CBC, DeSmet, Lee Summit North. That they've been number 1 pretty much the entire season. And Liberty North and Lee Summit North are not in the same district. So they
Lee Summit, yes, yeah, they are not in the same district. And you talk about teams up in that area. One team that's quietly gone under the radar that's going to be very dangerous is Smithville.
Yeah,
that's one that I haven't quite figured out why there aren't more people talking about them at that top tier level. Very well coached team. A lot of tradition there recently. They lost out to eventual state champion St. Mary's last year, and that was St. Mary's closest game, I think, throughout the entire year, except for one maybe they lost across state lines. So Smithville's kind of a sleeper for me. Class 2, up and down, is going to be a battle. I mean a battle. And if somebody can pick a winner for Class 2 right now, they would make a lot of money, because there's going to be a lot of money spread out across the board, because there are several teams capable of winning Class 2.
Yeah, Class 2, you've got Valley Catholic, and I tell you, Fair Grove has played lights out this year. And they're opposite the bracket from Lamar. Where typically they would always run into Lamar. Lamar's on the other side of the bracket, but they will have to get by Valley Catholic. In that semifinal game, if they're fortunate enough to get that far, and Lamar's, they've been to 11 of the last 14 state championships, and they've won 9 of them, and people just. They just do it every year. But playing in that Big 8, they're the smallest school in the Big 8. They have to play up. They've got to play Seneca. They play Nevada. Mount Vernon's a pretty quality Class 3 team. They come in at 8-1, I believe, the season. Their only loss is to Nevada, but they have, unfortunately, didn't get to play Seneca or Lamar during the regular season. And that kind of leads me into kind of the next segment, is that will change next year because of all the conference realignments. The Big 8 East is gone, which is where Mount Vernon was. Mount Vernon and Aurora were in the Big 8 East because they didn't want to split them up. But now they're going back into the traditional Big 8, which apparently they don't do math real well down there in the Big 8 because they've had 9 teams now in the Big 8. But that's going to leave them with an 8-team regular season with, you've got Marshfield and Rogersville going to the Ozark Mountain Conference. You had Reed Spring, Hollister, and Springfield Catholic going to the Mid-Lakes Conference. And it was voted on last night with the new Ozark Mountain Conference. Parkview and Hillcrest had submitted to be a part of that. Hillcrest was accepted, and Parkview was not. So Josh Scott's he's kind of got a handful now because the Ozark Conference is kind of starting to look like the Pac-12. Eric, what are your thoughts on the conference realignments?
I've talked to a lot of people this week just about conference realignment in general, and hey, there's a trickle down effect. So the bigger schools, the larger conferences, they've started making waves, and it's going all the way down. I think there's realignment possibilities. Even in Class 1, Class 2, Class 3 levels, it's just right around the corner. The Parkview thing is interesting. That it surprises me. Hey, where does that leave them? Where does that leave Springfield Central? There's a lot of questions there that I don't know that there's good answers for. Those 2 schools, I don't know where they go next.
Yeah, Darren, what are your thoughts there with especially specifically with Parkview and Central? Of course, Central's been, they've been by themselves for a while now with regards to football. They're still in the Ozark Conference in every other sport. But do they try and keep that together? Do they try and keep Glendale and Kickapoo along with Parkview and stay in that Ozark Conference and then maybe bring Central in? But what I'm hearing from up I-44 is, Rolla, Camdenton, Lebanon, and Waynesville. They met with the Jeff City and Columbia schools, maybe trying to join that conference because that's almost identical distance that they are from Springfield to get to Jeff City and Columbia. What are your thoughts, DA?
Well, I think if you're an AD right now, you're scrambling of any of those schools. You're scrambling to get in a conference period, get that commitment, just to be a part of a conference. I'm with you. I think Springfield, there may be a school or 2 left holding the bag, especially if it's announced that the schools up north that were part of the Ozark Conference, your Camdenton, Lebanon, Rolla, and Waynesville, if they head to Jeff City or in that general area, that leaves an awfully stripped conference with a few schools that dynamically it's going to be interesting to see what other conference they could fit in to be a fit for not only them, but for the conference as well. So interesting times ahead. It's kind of cyclical. We kind of went through this 5 or 6, 7 years ago, and there were some schools left out in the cold. Yours truly. I was a coach at one of those, and that's tough. Not being in a conference and trying to get a schedule put together, especially for football. you can make it work for other sports, but when it gets to football, it becomes awfully tough, and that's kind of the motor that drives the bus, so to speak. Is you've got to look at it from a football standpoint first. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and interesting times ahead.
You bet. We should know more, I would think, by this time. By the time this airs, here on Thursday, by Thursday night, I think we would know more, about where Parkview's going to end up. And you've got outliers like a McDonald County that's a Class 4 team in that Big 8 conference that maybe they move in, maybe try and move into the Ozark Mountain Conference. You say, well, that's too far away. Well, Carl Junction's already in it, and West Plains is in it. But they came out, the Ozark Mountain Conference came out today in a statement and basically said, we're sticking with 7, which that's going to help teams like Central, because now you don't have these 10-team conferences that already have their full football schedule.
Right.
So now those conferences are going to have to pick up games where they got games out of the SCA before, they got games out of the Southwest Conference, they got games out of Mid Lakes. But then the rest of their schedules that they'd go to Kansas City or St. Louis or Arkansas or Kansas, and they've got. I looked at their schedule for next year. They've got Olathe, Kansas, on their schedule next year, which is that's west of Kansas City in the west part of the city. But it's going to get interesting. Best guess, I really don't have a clue because I didn't think Parkview would get denied going in the Ozark Mountain Conference at all. And,
the football scheduling piece is it's 2-year cycles in essence in your scheduling, and the open dates. If you got an open date, it's hard to find somebody, and you got to be willing to go wherever a game is. And hey, those pieces are really complicated. I've heard of one conference in Missouri that's actually considering partnering with a Kansas conference, and they would cross over on a certain week, and everybody from the Missouri conference would play somebody in the Kansas conference. And then the second year of that cycle, they would play the same team, but just switch sites. So that's how creative that process has to be right now.
Little known fact, I think it's a fact. Our friends in Southeast Missouri, if I'm wrong, I'd be the first to tell you thank you for telling me I'm wrong. But I believe there are schools, smaller schools in Southeast Missouri, that are members of 2 different conferences because of scheduling, to make sure that they get enough games. The distances are so far apart that a lot of times they'll be a member of 2 conferences to make sure they can fill schedules.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, that's a wrap here. I enjoyed it. I hope everyone listening, I hope you've enjoyed listening to it as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. You are watching Huddle Up without Johnny Mack, and we're still not certain where he is. But no, he is taking care of his daughter. But he'll be back on our next episode. And for Darren Archer and our special guest host, Eric DeRossett, I'm Guy Newcomb. You've been watching and listening to Huddle Up here on the Missouri Sports Network from the Bambinos Italian Cafe. And we'll be back next week. Have a great evening.
This has been a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network. Thank you for tuning in.